As usual, LSU had a ton of guys in the Under Armour All-America game. One of them committing at the game. A lot of people thought Drake Davis, the wide receiver, was going to go to Ole Miss, but he decided to stay home. It's a kid who's, from Louisiana, went off to Virginia, gave up football to play soccer, went to IMG at Florida, hooked up with Shea Patterson as a lethal quarterback wide receiver combo, but decides to come back home and play for LSU. Not an established route runner, and by that I mean, he's very raw getting in and out of his breaks, and he doesn't set up guys very well on the defense. He doesn't fool you, but what he is, he's a big guy, and he can box you out. He can also beat you downfield with speed. He has pretty good hands overall, so I think he's a project. A little bit of a raw kid, but a wide receiver project is different than an offensive line project. Wide receiver project can be great within a year or two, and I think that could be the case here with Drake Davis because they can be polished up much, much quicker than offensive linemen. You move to defensive line, you've got Andre Anthony, who is the surprise, I think, of the day, of the week. An undersized defensive end who's quick off the edge. We compared him to Arden Key a little bit because he's sneaky strong as well. A little bit shorter, but a wider frame than Arden Key, and I think you could have the same type of impact because he's explosive off the snap. He's got that long body, so he can close very well on quarterbacks. The big question is, can he hold the edge and how will he do against the run? But he was one of those guys that I think proved himself to be underrated throughout the week. Rashawn Thornton is a tough one because I think he might be a linebacker, but he's playing defensive end, and it's just one of those things where he's a pure tweener, and that's not a bad thing. Some of these hybrid guys are extremely valuable to teams because sometimes you're in a 3-4 set and you want to bring a guy off the edge, or you want to bring a linebacker into a situation where he's a blitzer as a pass rush specialist. Thornton showed that he can get after the passer, and he, again, is an undersized guy who's very sneaky strong and can give you some trouble there. Edwin Alexander is just a big guy, very well put together. He can flash at times and make plays. Defensive tackle is an extremely important position in the SEC. I think he's going to be a run stuffer first, and if he can get a push at the quarterback, that's a bonus. And worst case scenario, he's a first, second down guy, and then you bring somebody in who can maybe get after the passer a little bit better. But a big physical kid, very difficult for offensive linemen to handle because it takes two of them for the most part. And then you go to the DBs, Savion Smith and Eric Monroe. Monroe started off a little bit slow, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, but then he had a great third day of practice. I thought he did fairly well in the game itself. He's a guy who's a scrappy defender who'll get in your face and sort of pester you a little bit throughout the game, and I think he's also got tremendous hips and he closes well. Just don't know how big he can be, so that's going to be one of his question marks. Savion Smith, I think, is a safety. I don't think he could be a guy left on an island. I think he does his best work moving forward. He just needs to be a little bit more instinctual in coverage and getting, a little bit closer to his guy. He always seems to be a one step slow at times when it comes to coverage, and I think that's something that they'll work on. LSU is one of the DBUs, if not the DBU, so they'll coach him up, but I don't think he can be on an island. I think he's going to be a tremendous free safety for LSU. So a lot of guys to talk about there. LSU well represented.